Welcome to Sweetcast, everyone. Should be live now. I've got Luke. I'm gonna say your name wrong, so I'm just gonna go with Luke. Live, and we're gonna be talking about Indiecron. Yeah, feel free to say hi in the chat.
Hello.
Welcome everyone.
Hello from Indiecron.
Hello, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I had been thinking, man, I need to do a stream about Indiecron, and it's been one of those things I just haven't. It's life has been busy, I guess, but I'm really glad that we're sitting down together and doing this. This will be great.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, 2018 has been a pretty great year for Indiecron. I don't know how would you sum it up, I guess?
I'd sum it up by saying that 2019 is going to make 2018 look like a bad vacation.
Yes. Yeah, I really believe that. I'm super stoked for 2019. Now Indiecron has got a comics label. You want to tell me a little bit about that? We talked about that a little bit beforehand, but
It's funny you would mention that. Yeah. Indiecron now has In Comics. Welcome to In Comics. We're going to be putting out quite a few titles. We actually have about half a dozen or more in the works. And we're going to be putting those together when we launch. We'll have a few available. And when we launch upcoming, we'll have some In Comics available. And we'll be putting it into the upcoming section before it goes on to Indiegogo.
very cool. So with then you also have the upcoming now, which is actually that's a feature I'm really looking forward to because I guess it just gives you some lead time to see what's coming. It keeps things fresh, I guess. Yeah,
it keeps it exciting, in that middle gray area when things get a little sleepy. You've bought your book and it's going to get worked on and then it's going to get shipped, but what's coming up next? People always want to know what's coming up next, right?
Exactly. So we do have a great question here in chat.
Hello, chat.
Yes, welcome. Let's see. Primal Rage 7 says, how do we submit? And so I'm going to ask, I guess, the two-part question. Submitting to upcoming now.
Well, the first part of that question is what happened to Primal Rage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
Are they further up the chat? Is that
I don't know. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So how do you submit to, I want to ask for upcoming now, and then also, is it any different for just Indiecron?
Well, if you have an upcoming project, if it's not in Indiegogo yet, then you go straight to indiecron.com and you click on the upcoming or the submission button, and then you go through the forms, answer a few questions, upload some photos, some sequential pages, generally make yourself look good. And then it goes through the high council. No, not the high. We're the low council, actually, but it goes through the council anyway. And then we put it up. That's it.
Very cool. So what about In Comics, the label, is that all goes the same process, or do you have a different kind of route for that? Or are you accepting submissions, or I don't know, give me the down low there.
Well, the down low on that is that we are very enthusiastic in looking for artists. We definitely want artists. We have a lot of books. They're already written and ready to go. The problem is we really need strong artists. So if you're an artist and you want to be working for In Comics, then send it to indiecron@gmail.com and we will give your sequential pages a nice look over.
Very cool. Artists are always in high demand.
Very
high demand. Like, I need to learn how to draw really well because everyone will want me.
It's true. No one wants me though. That's strange.
Yeah. It might not solve. It probably wouldn't solve my problems. That's for sure.
It'd probably make a few more problems. Like, how am I going to get these pages done on schedule?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
So Indiecron. So from my perspective, every once in a while, you may have seen on some of my shows, I'll do like a free ad for a Comicsgate creator, and I always go to Indiecron and look through the list, and that's where I'm getting all my information up to date. And then I know they're people that I want to help out because they're fighting the good fight.
Right. We are a political movement, right? So that's that in comics smashed together. So we're fighting that battle.
Yep. Yeah. So it's been I don't know. It's been really helpful, a helpful tool for me, and I'm sure a helpful tool for a lot of people. But the question always comes up: what makes you comic skate? And so, from Indiecron's perspective, we talked about this again a little bit earlier. But what makes someone's comic skate? What makes them worthy of being on Indiecron?
Well, I think first of all, you actually probably know if you're comic skate. I mean, you probably know if you're anti-SJW, right?
Yep. Yep.
You probably know that your job's in jeopardy. You probably know that you're living a really difficult political lifestyle, and you want to probably make some money in comics. And the best place to do that is with Indiecron, because we're listing CG books, and people are going to buy your books because
Yep.
they're affiliated with this political movement. Besides,
Right.
hopefully it's a good book. I hope.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I guess, the market decides, I guess, what's going to make it or not with these crowdfunding projects, which is nice. But the other nice thing is that we've seen so many successes. I don't know. I'm curious. This is kind of off the cuff. Do you have like numbers or percentages on successful Indiecron featured campaigns?
Well, the amount of, it's over $2.4 million in total.
Wow.
So there's a lot of money being pushed through here.
Yeah, that is. This makes me think. I don't know. Every time I see like pros, sort of flipping out over like small creators or any small YouTubers for that matter, I think they're worried, and I think that really illustrates why they're worried.
They're
That
very worried, but at the same time, they're trying to pretend that it's nothing.
right? Yeah, they ignore. I don't know. Like I don't know that they're ignoring. They're trying to put on a brave face, I guess, but
They're trying to smile as they sink on the Titanic.
right. And the bigger bite, I don't know, like yeah, the bigger bite we can take out of the market share. I don't know. That's so fun. I'm so excited for
So am
2019
I.
for exactly that
Yeah,
reason.
I love the way you put that. Yeah, and that's what really we have to create: more books, more comics, more success. Take a bigger bite out of the whole thing, and I'd love to just see them panic.
Yeah. Yeah, we have
Great.
time code mechanics in the chat. He says yes, they are insanely worried. I agree. Let's see. Roberts says, "Can I suggest a Comicsgate comic based on an agent who is haunted by Maxine Waters and her Senate committee on unjust activities after an election, a dystopia with President Elizabeth Warren
Wow.
harasses?"
Yeah, I don't know.
Flip it out.
She's a little too scary. That would be a horror genre.
Yeah, you'd have to rate that accordingly.
That would be rated S for stupid. But
Yeah. Nice.
not the book idea, mind you, but just them in particular.
Very cool. So I'm curious. This is again. I'm just. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. But I'm curious.
I better know the answers, or they're going to fire me. So go ahead.
Okay. When it comes to dollars, do you have a prediction for 2019 or at all?
Oh, I think we should at least go double.
Double. Great.
I think it would be fantastic if we could break 5 million in
Wow.
total.
Yeah, that would.
If we
that would
could
be
break 5
fantastic.
million total, imagine the madness that would ensue.
Yeah. Have you seen an increase in like submissions for Indiecron or like high points or anything like that?
Well, Indiecron is getting submissions for upcoming, and we're working diligently to help creators submit and to get their projects up and running. And we're very involved in trying to make them better books so that they're more successful. We want them to reach success on Indiegogo and not drop off. So it's very important that we are in a sense very much fighting a culture war. So we want every person going out there who's attempting to do this to be successful. It's more than just, this is more than just a business aspect where each person wants to make a little bit of money. We're working together on this.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's been the really cool thing too, is I think Like I'll take it back. My example would be like Ethan Van Sciver. Uh, he didn't have to like help and spotlight other small YouTube creators, but he did. I was really surprised when he reached out to me. But it seems like the more that we're reaching out and we're helping each other, it's just making us all more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have so much potential, and
Yeah.
I really would love to see that come together more. I mean, we've been, 2018, we've been distracted by a lot of things going on, right? Obviously, which I
Yeah.
won't go over. But I'm really hoping that, Indiecron helps focus our energies, in helping each other and getting better books and reaching out to larger companies like Indiegogo and fulfillment programs and printing programs, these companies, and try to bring our numbers together to get better help from
Mm.
larger corporations.
That brings up a really great point, and that is printing. I mean, it brings up a lot of great points, but printing. I don't know. Can you share some like ideas or like how would we go about getting better printing rates as by working together?
Well, we have a few good ideas, and we're in the moment we're talking to various printers, and some of them are obviously overseas. And what we have to do is we have to work together to try to increase our general numbers when we're printing. The more that we can increase our numbers, if we go to a printer and we say, okay, we're going to have 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 units. Well, each time, obviously, we go up, it lowers the cost of how much we're paying them. So we're cutting our overhead. So Indiecron's going to make the attempt, at least, when we bring artists together under the same banner, we'll try to go to printers as like one unit and say, okay, well, this print run is going to be, as long as there's no large changes between each run, like different sort of, aluminum covers or something like that, as long as it's very similar, we can put that in as one print run.
Yeah. That would be fantastic, especially for like new creators, or if you're launching a new campaign, getting prices down on printing is massive. It's just going to be easier to get funded too. Uh, yeah, I
Right,
really
absolutely.
love that idea.
Yeah, and the thing is, we want to help creators, not worry so much about, well, how am I going to get this printed? How am I going to get this shipped? How is all this going to work? And it takes a lot of time, as the first wave of successful CG creators can tell you, they're shipping things out of their garage, right? They're, how are we going to get this done? They're sweating bullets over it. But if we can form some sort of chain, or pipeline where we're going from the printers to the fulfillment agency, well, this is all done very quickly. And that period of time, an artist can obviously be working on another book. So if we can streamline all this, to some extent, we could give the big two a little bit of a run for their money, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and so that also brings up distribution. Do you think that we can work with Diamond, or do you think we can just bypass Diamond? Or I don't know. What are your thoughts on distribution?
Well, there's a variety of choices here, obviously. And, if LCSs are going to survive, which is doubtful at this point, it's looking like, the era is coming to a close on them. But
Yeah.
if there's some sort of lucky shot in the dark and LCS stay around, well, then, yeah, we will definitely, endeavor to work something out with Diamond. When we have the right sort of numbers, then Diamond will accept us. But we need the numbers. Every business, every corporation basically wants to see that we're organized, we know what we're doing, and we've got the numbers. Numbers means money.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that, and I think it's a really healthy perspective to look. I mean, I love my local comic shop, uh, but yeah, there's definitely like ways to just get to your market, and especially if they won't carry your book, or you can't get distribution. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good reasons, including numbers, to be going direct.
Yeah, well, a lot of LCSs are denying books, obviously.
Right.
And so they're making themselves obsolete. And when you look at paradigms like Amazon and various other online agencies. It's kind of, written in stone here that most brick and mortar places are coming down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it elsewhere. It's not. I don't know. I think of Borders, and like I've talked about them a lot in videos. Borders and Barnes and Noble. Things have changed in just publishing in general. So yeah, comics being any different would be really strange. It's really not
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. When's the last time you bought a book at Borders?
Uh, it's been years,
Years.
many years.
Ask me when's the last time I've seen a Borders.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Borders is out of business, right? We got
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
yeah, Barnes and Noble's around. I think
Right.
there are
Right.
few though. Yeah, they've really reined things in.
I've heard rumors like somewhere in the rainforest they might have one somewhere left.
Yeah.
But I've never actually seen it.
It's more of a novelty, like they have the one blockbuster that's still around in, I think it's like Oregon or something like that.
Oh yeah. Okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of that effect. It's kind of like that old video effect, I mean, it's quaint and it's nice. I'd love to go into an LCS. It's a lot of fun. You see all the books and, you get to preview them, look through them, it reminds me of the old days, right? I'm sure it does for everyone.
Yeah.
But if they're going to do things like they've been doing where they turn books away, I can't do anything about that.
Right. Yeah, especially when, I mean, they're having demand for books too. Like I don't know, like you've seen, I don't know how many, but I've seen some local comic shops that just are taking a political stance against Comicsgate, and they're refusing, to carry some titles. And I don't know. I'm just like, when has that ever mattered? You sell books, you make money if your customers want them, but regardless, Comicsgate is selling books. That is irrefutable. That's for sure.
Absolutely. We are selling books, and we're going to be selling a lot more books in 2019. And there's really nothing that anyone can do to stop it.
Yeah.
So we may as well make the best of it.
So talking about the future, I'm curious, how many titles do you expect to see, new titles for 2019 Comicsgate?
Oh, that'd be a tough estimate. But I mean, I would say at least, again, I'd go to double the amount.
Mm-hmm.
I know that In Comics is going to have at least 4 to 6 new titles in 2019, if not more. And we're going to, obviously, we have quite a lot coming up and upcoming, and we're going to have the regeneration of all the previous pros in CG, and they're going to be bringing out books again. So I'd say pretty close to double the amount of comics. Because a lot of the people in CG, I think, are coming out with multiple books. I think Ethan is as well. And that's really going to push a lot of books out there. And they know, as well as Indiecron knows, as well as we all know, it's a numbers game again, and we need to put up more titles, more books. And if we do go to LCSs, then we want space, right? We want to take shelf space.
True. Yeah. And I know, I'm also thinking of John Malin. I know he's got lots of big plans for more books in the future. So for new creators or people that are first coming to bring a book in 2019, this is their first book. Full disclosure, I'd be one of those people.
Ooh, you've got a book coming up? What is it?
So right now I'm still working on it, but it's called Downcast. I've got an artist lined up.
You found an artist?
I found an artist.
In what country?
In Italy.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Was he chained to a wall eating like sour bread?
Man, I talked to him about it, and I was like, let's full disclosure, I want to let you know everything that's going on. And I'm really excited about it. I don't really have anything to announce just yet. I want to show some art first. But yeah, like I've published before, I published a couple novels, but never a comic before. I've tried several times, so it's been really hard to break in. So to me, this is like, here's a place where I can stand on my merit, and I don't have to impress anybody with these weird weird political beliefs.
You don't have to kiss any ass.
Exactly. Yeah, I can just make the best comic I can.
Right.
Yeah. So
That's
I'm
beautiful. That's what CG is about, isn't it?
yeah.
That's
That to
the
me,
beauty
like,
of it.
yep. Yeah, it's inspiring to just see that before, like, I used to submit I used to submit a lot to Image Comics because I thought, man, if anyone, maybe Image. But in hindsight, there's no way. I really think like even my zip code would just prevent me from getting in, and you gotta know people, I guess, too. But yeah, it feels nice to just be like, I don't need them.
There's just
Uh,
so much politics in the big two, or the
yep,
big three, and you've really got to kiss a lot of ass to get something going. And they don't really care about quality. They care about meeting their schedule, and they
yep.
care about their politics.
It almost seems like they're riding this dying ship. They're just riding it till it runs out of gas and they're done and over with.
Well, they want this to happen. That's the whole point. I mean, they're very self-destructive, and their idea of creation is through destruction. So to
yeah,
them, destroying this entire thing, well, that's a novelty. That's a good time.
right. Yeah, they're I don't know. It's like, is it the toxic masculinity? Is that, I don't know. It's everything that I guess the past has stood for. Anything good, they just want to run it into the ground.
Well, they
Uh,
just feel like guys like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, who basically created most of these characters, these fantastic characters that you see in Marvel movies and making millions and billions of dollars, right?
mhm.
This kind of man is almost gone from our culture, and so now what is it replaced with? Angry, these really angry people,
Yeah, yeah,
and desperate.
yeah, vindictive, and they blame. I don't know. I just keep thinking of some of these pros that just drive me crazy.
They're
I don't.
hilarious. They're hilarious. Can you imagine
Yeah.
Stan Lee ever doing anything like that, or Jack Kirby, and ever doing anything like Chuck would
No,
do?
no.
No,
Yeah,
that would be impossible, right?
I mean, they're just so likable, and it's not an accident. Like it, Stan Lee, you can tell. I mean, I've never had the pleasure of meeting Stan Lee, but he just seems like the most fun guy. So great and accommodating to his fans.
Great
And yeah,
personality.
yeah. And I'm just like, where has it gone?
Well,
Because
because this was a man who joined the army. I think he was in the Air Force. He came out on the GI Bill. I mean, all these men had something very similar. Jack Kirby also went to war, came back on the GI Bill. He worked his way up through comics. I mean, there's a whole history on both these individuals. And most of the people in that era, most of the men who did comics, practically invented comics, or that genre of comics, when it moved into from romance comics, monster comics and horror, and then superheroes. You're
mhm.
looking at the same type of virtuous male energy, that came out onto the pages, and they worked like crazy. Now look at the men who are in charge now.
Yeah, they're,
Wow.
yeah, running it into the ground. I don't know, like.
Happily running it into the ground.
Yeah, and encouraging. That's like not only like going after individual fans, like I'm specifically saying on Twitter, going after individual fans and critics, but also encouraging trolls to tear down the competition, to tear down indie comics. It blows my mind.
To
I
tear through violence, inciting violence in America against Americans.
Yeah, that I
Wow.
don't know. The fact that, and I've been dealing with this a lot, thinking about this a lot lately, but the fact that you feel like you can't express your opinion on a hobby for for crying out loud, a
Right.
hobby, for fear of retaliation, like physical violence or so-called deplatforming or somebody calling up your place of work. This is crazy. This is not how the real world has ever worked.
No, and what's really bizarre is that, obviously we have the Constitution, and we have laws and bylaws to prevent these things, and yet it's still happening.
Yeah, it bypasses. I mean, if they can, get you fired, they're bypassing the law. Or they're going other means to get rid of your source of income to do it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just look at the spirit of the Constitution, you look at the spirit of in which the laws are enacted, and how they would be engaged upon or brought into effect, those things are all being ignored for a greater part, and allowing these individuals to perform, acts of violence, acts of sometimes terrorism, and people turn away. Even the big companies turn away, and they allow it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and
It's mind-boggling.
yeah, like Antifa, that just tacit like agreement or encouragement of groups like Antifa. Yeah, it blows my mind that that's now acceptable, and I don't think to your average person it's not acceptable. But gosh, for most everybody in power, it feels like that's just the acceptable norm, and they're okay with it.
Well, they're under a lot of pressure to conform, and we
Yeah.
saw that recently with Coates, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was under a lot of pressure, bow down, bend the knee, do what you've got to do, but do it right, or you're going to lose all your money. And he must be making something like 6 figures, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the stars, right? I mean, there's only uh, I don't know. I think of a handful of creators that I realize that comics is a tough industry to be in, but there are some creators that have got to be doing well, and he's certainly one of them.
Absolutely. So when someone tells you, even the lowest of the low go on Twitter and attack him and say, hey, where have you been? You mean you haven't put them down yet? You haven't denounced CG yet? And he's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I was just going to, but oh, man, I completely forgot. I didn't think it was absolutely necessary. I'm so sorry. Yes, yes, of course. Of course, I denounced them. Please don't eat my children.
Right.
I mean, he was terrified, absolutely terrified.
Yeah, and so this another crazy reality of the modern era is that uh, somehow the public has a right to know where uh, comic creators stand politically. It's so strange. Like I don't know. I think most industries they just do their job. They're giving you a product or a service. You exchange it for money, and you go on your way. But now it's like you need to know that everybody is in unison standing with you politically. Otherwise, they don't deserve to be doing business. I mean, it, you someone should have the right to remain neutral if they want to remain neutral.
Yeah,
Uh,
they should have that right, but no one allows them that anymore. Personally, I really wouldn't care. I don't really care to know about a creator's political affiliations. I want to buy a comic if I like the comic, you know. But when they come out and they start attacking their own customers, and they're violent and they're crass and disgusting, that really takes the beauty out of that comic for me. I can't go and buy that anymore. Like, how do I buy a Chuck comic book, or I think he was writing Darth Vader, or a Star Wars book from him? I
yeah,
can't buy that without thinking in my mind those tweets that he put out where I want you to eat this type of boot. I won't say what it is. Yeah, I want you to eat this boot. So now every time I think of this bloke, I think of these tweets, and it makes it obviously very distasteful.
yeah, yeah. I the same way. I've got I was following the Black Widow run back when Nathan Edmondson and Phil Noto were on it, and I
Mhm.
loved that art.
Yeah.
And then, Mark Wade had his little stint on Black Widow, and
Yeah.
I've got one of those trades, and I honestly, I wanna just throw it away. It's sitting there, and every time I see it, I'm like, "Ugh." I have
They're
such a
just
bad taste in
they're
my mouth.
making themselves so repulsive that anything that they create becomes repulsive as well. Now, a Jack Kirby comic, I look at old Jack Kirby comics now, and they look like they're gleaming with gold. They've taken on such a different light in my eyes when I look at older comics, from these fantastic creators. And I know something about their history. I mean, I like comics history, and I know quite a bit about them personally, and their history and their lives, obviously with famous people. A lot of that is publicized.
Yeah,
But there's not a single thing that would detract from those comics. And now, with so many creators just being so heinous in their actions in the public eye, I look at these older comics and I'm just like, wow, These things really look beautiful. They really look innocent.
Yeah. And it's not it has that's exact evidence, I think, why it's not about being conservative or liberal, because I can enjoy I mean I would say I'm center right. But I can enjoy and I can have great conversations with people that are center left. It's this very extreme end, the social justice warrior end of the spectrum that is just they are intolerable to me. And I'm sure that goes both ways. Uh,
Sadly.
yeah. Um, yeah, man, I love talking about some of the older creators too. I watched a documentary on Jack Kirby, and man, I just love him.
I love him so much now as well. You know, I mean, I've always really enjoyed his work, but I'd say in the last year, it's truly become something mind-boggling to me. And I've
Yeah,
been endeavoring to get more and more of his older, you know, his older. Obviously, it's all older work of his work. And every time I get a piece, I just enjoy it so much. It's
yeah,
and it just has this quality to it, you know. And I don't know if it's innocence or genius that comes through, or just his sheer creativity. It's probably a combination of all these things. But the vivacious nature of it, you know, and the conviction behind his work, and there's a lot of older artists as well like that. But it's just so incredibly overwhelming and mind blowing compared to what's being put out now.
yeah, yeah. It's he loved it too. I don't know, like, and I feel like you see that he was loved his fans. He's
Yeah.
so underappreciated too. I don't know.
Very underappreciated. When fans used to go to his house, they'd meet his wife. She would make them sandwiches, and they'd sit and he'd go down to the basement and see where Jack was drawing, and he would just hand out pages that he had drawn. He would just hand them out.
Yeah, I heard he did that at Comic Con sometimes. Someone would
Yeah,
just ask him for a page and he'd just give it to them.
yeah, amazing.
Ah,
And as far as I know, he never had a bad word for anyone.
yeah,
Just an
yeah,
amazing person. But that level of creativity doesn't exist anymore. And these characters that were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, I hate to say it, but they've kind of come to the end of their lives, in my opinion. You know,
yeah,
they have a new life in the movies, and I understand that. But what these companies, Marvel and DC, have done, you know, to these characters, they distorted them so much to such a degree that the original essence of them is truly getting lost. I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I yeah, I mean, and this is why yeah, yeah, I've totally moved to indie comics. And speaking of, we've got Alterna Comics in the chat.
Oh, hi.
Welcome, Alterna.
Welcome, Artuna. Good to see you here. Well, I can't actually see you, but good to know you're here.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what gets me so excited about Indiecron and a lot of these Comicsgate creators is that you have passion projects. I mean, there's so many of them, and I don't know. You can tell people really care about them. They're putting in a lot of work. Um, I'm even like thinking of Nasser and his books. You know, he's still working a full time job. He still does he'll do the live stream of him eating lunch. Yeah, working hard and trying to just put good stuff out there. I think there's a lot of creators like that in Comicsgate, and I really hope that there's going to be many more. I have every reason to believe that there will be.
I think there is going to be. I think that Comicsgate will bring on a renaissance of comics, you know, and because the internet obviously has changed almost everything in our culture. And comics is going to be the last thing in which we can use the internet, and it's already been used, obviously, in the last wave of CG comics, that the internet is used to transcend the restrictions of distribution placed upon us by these people who own Diamond, by the people who owned the big two. And, you know, that used to be the only place you could go get any work. People were desperate. I mean, even like Jack Kirby, he was desperate. It's like, where am I going to work? Can't work at Marvel anymore. They're treating me like, you know, garbage. I'm going to DC. He would go back and forth between two companies because there was just no other way to get his stuff out. We have the luxury of transcending that paradigm that has been choking the life out of comics for ages. And that's why we're going to have a lot of innovation, you know, and a lot of passion projects, as you said. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's yeah, using the technology that we have today, which I honestly feel like the big two haven't utilized. I've made several videos about that as well. But yeah, using that, and that's again what I love about Indiecron is that yeah, you guys are making it more accessible for people to get in there and be able to browse comics that they're looking for. You're I don't know, these are books you'll probably like. So
Yeah, you
yeah,
know, I mean,
love
you
that.
can't underestimate really the importance of Indiecron right now, and that's one of the reasons I got involved in it. You know, I work with Dr. Wright. He's at Dr. Wright is in, and of course, Pixel Trader. And we work really hard. We've been working really hard to get Indiecron together, and you can't underestimate the power that it's going to have on the comic industry, because we're going to be building a lot of things into Indiecron. We're going to have upcoming section, which is really going to be important. It's really going to create a lot of feather in the, you know, in
Yeah.
CG and in the industry itself, because we need a place where, you know, we're not Marvel and DC, obviously, so we don't have the advertising money. We don't have the means of getting out, okay, here's what's coming next and all these things, right? But we do have the internet, and
Yeah.
we do have Indiecron.
And you're communicating like today you can communicate directly with fans that care and that are willing to move their dollars away from yeah these big publishers that don't care about them.
Right,
Uh,
and they're willing to make a political statement.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's part of CG as well. I mean, we're doing apolitical comics, but we are a political movement, obviously, or I wouldn't
yeah,
have spent the last year and a half, you know, battling them on Twitter.
right. Yeah, it's yeah, it's crazy because you can't even just saying that you want to remain apolitical. Uh, in the climate today, that's a political thing.
It's a
S
very big political thing. Yeah, if I mean, if Coates were to say he would be, hey, I want to be apolitical and keep my job, do you think they'd let him?
No, there's no
No,
way.
no,
No,
no. I mean,
and
a single individual pushed him into the virtual corner of cyberspace and said, why didn't you do this before? Why didn't you denounce them before? You will
yeah.
not pass.
Yeah, and he caved too.
Caved in a virtual nanosecond.
Yeah,
And I bet he didn't even know who that person was.
no, and it didn't matter.
No,
They're it's
didn't
and
matter.
it's
It
why
was probably a 10-year-old. He grabbed his mom's phone or something. He went on there, I'm going to get this guy.
right. Yeah, you can bring you can bring one of the biggest comics creators to their knees just by saying the right kinds of words.
At the
Yeah,
right
it's
time with the right mentions.
yep, it's maddening, and then that's why I don't know. Like, yeah, I had in my video this morning. I'm never going to apologize for not towing the line for somebody else's political points of view. It it only gives them more power. Unfortunately, I do think in his situation, yeah, I mean, there's no way he'd keep his job. He knew that. Uh, but the more people that cave to it, the more that becomes the norm, and yeah, it has to change.
Well, that's why it's so important right now, you know, that we back CG, that we unify CG. I mean, we're one of the largest fronts, political fronts, hobby fronts, that is actually gaining success on the SJWs.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a lot of people really realize that.
That's a great point. That this is we can do what I think like Gamergate couldn't do.
Exactly.
Having the ability to just compete with the existing industry or replace the existing industry in video games that would take so many resources to do that. But in comics, this is a medium we can. Genuinely believe we can compete with the existing the yeah the whole existing status quo. We can certainly compete with it, and we've already been doing it.
Well, we have been competing, but we need to win.
Right.
We can't let them overrun us. And you know, we've had a rough year. There's been various things I shan't go over because they're just boring and trivial.
Yeah.
You know, and I rather focus on the constructive and getting things together. In 2019, we can obliterate the competition
Yeah.
just through sheer numbers. If we can pull our numbers together, and that's why I believe Indiecron is so important. You know, obviously the pros are very important as well, and you know, Ethan and the crew. They're doing a fantastic job, and I'll give them nothing but accolades, until the day I meet my grave, which hopefully will be a very long time from now.
Oh yeah.
But, but I think there's something we can all do, and I think we need more books. I think we need more voices, and I think that we can rally together. And somewhere out there in CG, there's the next Jack Kirby. There's the next really creative fellow who's really going to put together some comics that's going to recapture that essence, just that joy of, even at this point, when I find myself an old Jack Kirby comic and I buy it, I'm like, wow, this was really inventive and it's just really interesting. I still find it interesting.
And there's still great characters. I think that Marvel and DC are always, they're just riding off the same the successes of their predecessors.
Exactly.
And I don't think that it's not just like all of the great stories and all the great characters have been told. That's not true at all. I think there's going to be so many great things, and this is the kind of environment that would like foster somebody like that, the next Jack Kirby, or the next
someone like you, mate, who wants to do comics, but didn't want to go through kissing all those asses.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I've been working really hard. I've been staying up so late trying to make this work. But yeah, I've been inspired by the quality of the books coming out in Comicsgate, and I feel like a healthy sense of competition. I want to be, I want people to look at my book and be like, yeah, this at least competes with some of those great books. And yeah, I guarantee that there's many other creators out there that are going to do great things.
Well, Indiecron wants to be a focal point for that sort of thing, because when you bring your book out, right? Before it used to be you would try to build up something on Twitter, and then you'd go into Indiegogo, and then you'd try to push that, and you could easily die on the vine, But with upcoming, with having pre-campaigns on Indiegogo, you can really gauge the reaction of the audience. You can use Twitter, you can relate to people, you can get your stuff out there more. So you have a centralized place for everyone to go to, and the traffic and everything that we have on Indiecron is a proven fact. The numbers are proven facts. When SJWs recently tried to dispute those numbers, Pixel so admirably tore him to pieces in an eloquent manner, mind you, very civil. Merely pointed out that his interpretation of the numbers was correct, and the other person's obviously was incorrect. And this person backed down and begged for forgiveness, basically. These are indisputable situations.
Yeah.
And we need people like you to take advantage of that.
Right. Man, it's been a great conversation. I'm thinking like, man, I should have you on again sometime. We can just talk about the history of comics. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun. I'd love to do that. I love comics. I mean, I'm really I'm really into the older comics. At a certain point, it just got kind of dirty, and I'm just not really into that.
Yep. I'm for me, I'm looking at old issues or indie comics. I will not buy another modern Marvel or DC comic at this moment in time.
Well, I think that's an important point, what you're saying. And I had a feeling this was going to come up today on this cast, because I saw a little bit of it on Twitter where people, and sometimes it comes up and people say, oh, I'm not buying from Marvel or DC anymore. And I've said that a lot myself, and I don't buy from them anymore. And I advocate not buying from them anymore for several reasons, obviously, And I think we know what most of the reasons are. I won't go into that. But I think the important reason is the one we're talking about. When we talk about CG, and we talk about Indiecron, and we talk about creators that we want to bring in, and how we want to renew the industry, and keep it from being destroyed, because it's an industry that we really care about. I mean, obviously you care about it. I know I do. And I think there's a lot of people in CG who do as well.
Yeah, there a lot of passionate people. And I think that's what excites me so much about Comicsgate is people are so passionate about it that they're willing to move companies. And for some people, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, Spider-Man got me into comic books. That's actually Stan Lee's Spider-Man got me into comic books. And so I mean, when I look at stuff that Dan Slott's writing, I'm pretty disenchanted anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know. Like, yeah, for some people it may be a harder decision than others, but to me it's just natural. You're gonna want to read. You want to read good stuff.
You're going to want to read Cyberfrog. You're going to want to read, you know, you're going to want to read these new CG books that are coming out. You're going to want to read in comics that are coming out, because it's a natural evolution. You know, everything ebbs and flows in nature, and the time has come for Marvel to die. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that's it. I'll happily help carry the casket to the grave if anyone asks, but I think I'm doing that by helping with Indiecron.
Yeah. I think so. To me it's been a really, really helpful tool. And I think I'm really excited about some of these upcoming things because it'll continue to be an even more useful tool in 2019.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of features. So it's really going to grow exponentially. You know, Pixel's working very hard on the code, and obviously I'm doing all I can do, and same thing with the doctor. But it's really going to grow exponentially, and we feel like there's a lot of power. And the more people we can bring in, the better, because the more numbers that's going to give us in order to move on and deal with larger companies, larger corporations like Indiegogo and fulfillment facilities and things like that. And when we can sort those out through our numbers, that's going to enable, you know, you and a lot of other people to circumvent some of the issues that they would have with, you know, try and fulfill 10,000 comics.
Right.
What happens if you sell 10,000 comics and they drop that off at the front of your house?
Honestly, that's something I have nightmares about.
they're like, hey, Clint, you just sold 10,000 comics. You're like, yay! Oh, what?
Wait a second.
Where's that going?
Yeah, and shipping costs too. Sometimes, you know, I've read horror stories about the surprises of shipping costs. Or
it can be very, very bad, and sometimes you have to overcompensate. You know, where you're charging a lot more for shipping because your Euro shipping is going to be outrageous.
Oh yeah, so it makes me wonder too. If we can, to me, this is a proof of concept. This is proof we're showing the industry that it can be done another way.
That's what you and I are doing right now. Yes. Well, Ethan's shown it as well, obviously. But I mean, we're trying to do it in a, you know, more of a us little guys all together sort of effect.
Right. But I wonder, and I hope that more pros that have been quiet and have not yet, you know, disavowed, I hope that to them it'll be proof and evidence enough to jump on board. Because to me, I'm like, everyone's welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to a degree. You know, the point is that's their lifestyle, you know, and it's not easy to give that up.
Definitely.
You know, like well, I'm not married, but my girlfriend's family, they're extreme liberals, extreme. Oh, wow. You know, and if I mention anything, they'll start screaming like banshees. So I don't want to turn my family into monsters, so I don't say anything. So to address what you're saying, a lot of people, you know, they're just not going to leave their comfort zone.
No, yeah, I think you're right. I'd love, I don't know, just people that are brave and willing to join. If they're not, I'm honestly, I have a bad taste in my mouth about so many pros.
Yeah,
it seems like, are there any holdouts left? I don't know.
I don't really think so.
I don't either. Yeah, I think
so. Yeah. And I think that we have a lot of talent in CG, and we need to utilize the talent we have.
Yeah.
And we need to use it properly and create that industry, you know, and they can either retire or find other jobs. I hear Dairy Queens, things like that, they're hiring all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could I've seen those guys that paint little things on windows, there's an artist job, I guess.
In seasons they have to paint these little Christmas bells and such on the windows. There's work out there for them. So I'm optimistic.
If Marvel doesn't work out, you know, that
Marvel is going to be a great write-off for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that's how it is.
And Disney doesn't even care.
No, why should they care? They're making billions off of Jack
Yep.
Kirby and Stan Lee's characters, right?
Yeah. It's just the intellectual property. That's all they wanted.
That's all they want. So all they need to do is support the ownership of that or validate it. We've got some comics. Sometimes they'll come out with a Thanos book, and sometimes they'll let Jim Starlin write it, and sometimes they won't. You know, and they'll get away with it. But they make so much money off of these things that it's not a big deal to write off all of Marvel Comics.
Yeah, it's nothing, and that's why it's like they're almost just their room for political experiments. Yeah, it's just their their playground for their politics.
Exactly. Yeah, they're playing with what they don't really understand the cultural situation. You know, they understand the liberal sense of what they're trying to achieve, or the distortion of what they're trying to achieve. And now Marvel is going to go much more SJW. And it's really funny, after the blatant failure of most DC movies, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars here, losses.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so to see Marvel want to go that way also, it's almost an uncontrollable desire to suicide.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. It's not going to keep. They're riding off of the superhero movies. Yeah, I don't see a good end in sight.
Well,
Especially
end. I see a CG end. I mean,
yeah,
CG takes over. I see that as the end.
Right. Yeah, the industry is going to be just taken over right from under them, because they haven't been taking care of it themselves.
Well, they've been taking care of it, but what they've been doing is they've been kind of, you know, spray painting the walls and going insane, and, you know, bringing in friends that you shouldn't leave overnight in your office, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Stanley, he wants his basement apartment back.
Get out of Stan Lee's house. I mean,
Right.
the house that Stan Lee built is kind of being, you know, torn apart.
Yeah, and they're gonna, in the meantime, just outsource everything and have IDW write it instead.
Yeah, isn't that interesting that they would dare to take? That's how much consideration they have for the industry and for their property.
Yeah,
Zero.
I never thought I would see the day, and until recently. But now it's like, when I saw that announcement about the Spider-Man book, I was just like, well, here it goes. Yeah, they're just letting the comics slide.
They just don't care. It's inconsequential to them.
Yeah.
And for the a lot of times corporations have this type of feeling about their product, obviously.
Right. Yeah, well, they're just there for the intellectual property, I guess, and
they're just a lot of times editors in the past, you know, they're like, hey, we've got a product, put out this product, work the artist to the bone. As long as he meets his schedule, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And I understand, with a business, you have to meet, you know, it's a tough business, especially for artists. You've got tough deadlines. But this type of situation, you know, for someone like you who's coming in, thankfully, it's not going to be that difficult, is it?
No, the barriers to entry are, everything is different.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have the same kind of gatekeeping. And don't get me wrong, like, you should, like, there should be good quality books, and we've already seen a lot.
Right.
I think there's more to come. But having the readership decide what's good quality, that, I think it's really important, because
it is really important. That's a major component of the internet, right? That kind of back and forth, that interface with your consumer that people didn't have before.
Yeah.
So now we have that.
Yeah, instant feedback. You can, just talk, and you're not going to make everyone happy, obviously, but you get a sense of what kind of things people like. I mean, really, it's from a marketing perspective, it's a dream to be able to be that close to your customer.
Yeah, as long as your customer is not completely insane, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, just don't listen to the 6 people on Tumblr.
Right, yeah, skip the furries, you know, and get to the other stuff. But the thing that's really good for a person like you coming into comics now is that you hopefully are not going to have to suffer this horrendous stress of going through these horrific deadlines that editors and companies pushed onto you, like, you've got 20 days, 15 days, give me 22 pages now.
Yeah.
And you have to, at some point along that line of drawing all those pages, something's going to give.
Right. Yeah, and the quality often. Yeah, the story. Yeah, and that's the nice thing, I guess, about just having that flexibility in the industry. Maybe my plan is to put out just one book. It's going to be a relatively thick one,
Right.
and see where it goes. But yeah, I mean, you can have any format you want. You don't need to do the 22 pages. Yeah, people are they're pretty accepting, it seems like, at what kind of.
Well, the beauty here is that you're going to get to create your book the way you want to, at the pace that you can do it. So the quality that's going to come out is going to be obviously your responsibility, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's something that creators care about, because they have the freedom to care about it.
Right. Exactly. Freedom. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I love it. And I've said this so many times in my life in so many different types of industries, where you've got to get the middleman out, because it's the middleman who's getting fat off of the creator's labor.
Yeah, no doubt, and it's crippling the rest of the industry. I mean, that's why the economics of comics are so hard. It's so hard to make the numbers work, with how bad sales are, especially. So yeah, I don't know. That's, I think, Diamond is stifling things, and I don't know. There's just a lot of parasites
There's a
on
lot
the
of
industry.
people feeding off of the creator. So when
Yeah.
you get your book, you're going to get the money for your book.
Right.
Of course, you'll pay the printer and you'll pay other artists who work on it as well. But you don't have to pay the middleman. You don't necessarily have to pay for some sort of loan shark distributor, who's putting dictates to you, how you have to go about doing things, how you schedule it, or how many orders you have to have. You're going to do it your own way. So you're responsible and you reap the rewards.
Right.
I wish Jack Kirby had that opportunity, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, he had a hard life.
Very hard life.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, like you're saying, his pages just look beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
By today's standards, they're beautiful.
I really believe that. I mean, I feel it. I enjoy it on that level, and I'd love to see CG create something like that. And I see things. I mean, I'm dying for Cyberfrog to come out. And that's a great example. It's going to come out when Ethan says it's ready to go out, and that's great.
Yeah, and every time I see a page come out, oh man, black and white or color,
right?
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. So here we are. CG's creating these. We're working hard to create these things of beauty in the industry, just like they used to do. Hopefully we're not all going to be crippled like poor Jack Kirby was because of it. And we're going to put out these things of beauty. Meanwhile, the big two are cranking out books that look like people are disintegrating in it. The drawing is so bad, you can't even tell what it is.
And the writing just reads like a propaganda pamphlet.
Yeah, it's really absurd. How do they not catch that themselves?
I don't know. They definitely have a different set of priorities, that's for sure.
You've got to be very brainwashed.
Yeah, I don't know. I see some of these people in real life. And yeah, it is so crazy to me because they get really hung up on just the littlest things that I think you're like, where are your priorities at? I don't know. It's maddening. And obviously, you got to get along, but I don't know. I don't want them running my job.
Yeah, it's a strange club that they're trying to get along with, and the floor is ever changing for them. They're jumping to every island that they can survive on because they turn on each other so quickly and so easily, and you never know when suddenly you're offending someone.
Yeah.
I went to the supermarket, and some bloke gave me stuff, and he's like, "Well, thank you very much, sir." And I said, "Well, you're welcome." And he said, "Oh, well, I didn't mean to call you sir. Wait, I'm like, what?"
Oh dear.
And he was sweating
Uh,
because they had already given him the proclamation. It had already come down from the higher ups that don't call anyone by a sir or a him or a her. And I'm like, yes, I am a sir. Thank you. Can you
yeah.
just give me my food?
Right. Well, yeah, man, this was one of the first issues that I stepped into when I started the YouTube channel. Um, and I honestly thought, I'm not that confrontational of a person, really. I think I'm pretty tame in Comicsgate, but it doesn't matter.
You're a very kind soul to me.
I thought so, but no, apparently I'm hateful. I get told
You're
that
hateful?
hate every day. I hear it.
What?
Um,
That's hilarious.
yeah, and it's all I misgendered somebody,
Oh, damn it, Clint.
and I'm not apologizing for it,
You couldn't
because
tell their gender over Twitter?
saw no saw one photo online, and I should have known better, I guess, but that was the biggest thing I had. But I kind of wear it like a badge of honor because to me, it, I never agreed to the set of rules where I have to use somebody else's words. I use my own words. To me, I just this seems common knowledge, but I don't know, the world's going mad.
Yeah, I mean, how do you draw a comic and someone has to address someone, by a specific pronoun or a male or a female? If you read like Gail Simon's book, A Plastic Man, which unfortunately I had the misfortune of falling upon once,
Uh,
there were several pages that were completely specifically denoted to a small child being completely confused about their gender for pages and pages while they were trying to figure out what the clothes to put on.
yeah,
This is a comic book now.
yeah,
Now, you take 3 pages of Jack Kirby, where he's invented entire civilizations, new mechanisms, new powers, and perhaps a new philosophy on, on every chapter, and
yeah.
you compare that to compare that to some poor boy trying to figure out if he should wear a dress or slacks or trousers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to have the freedom to make creative decisions, and to be censored by your ideology, before you even get it on your page on the page, or after for that matter. Uh, this is insane. It's
It's
not
insane. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, especially when you're so brainwashed that you think what you're doing is brilliant and you're giving yourself accolades. You're like, oh,
yeah,
you go back and you read it, go, this is fantastic.
yeah, and it's not good for the industry as a whole. The whole idea that, I mean, just critics, I mean, again, diversity in comics. He just had a YouTube channel, and he was on their radar when he had a very small YouTube channel.
Right.
But it's unacceptable to criticize their books. When
Well,
he
they can't
criti-
stand it. They can't stand it. The goal here is mediocrity in all things. If everything becomes incredibly mediocre, they will suddenly become talented individuals.
right, yeah, if they've got good, like genuinely good stuff that they're competing against, yeah, it definitely makes them look so much worse.
Yeah, it makes them look like simpletons.
Wow, we've been going for an hour. I'm curious, did we did get off on some tangents,
Mhm.
and I have enjoyed those.
That's
Uh,
okay.
did we miss something that you really want to get out?
Uh, well, no, I think we're fine. I mean, I like the way it went. It's interesting. You know,
Yeah.
the only thing I would say is we're going to have, a lot of interesting things on Indiecron, and more information, more tables, more of an active website for creators. And we're also going to have creators tables. You can go in there and you can find an artist to work with. When you bring your book out, maybe
Oh,
you'll find an artist through there.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Maybe you'll find a colorist.
Yeah, because that has been sort of a difficult thing, is just connecting with artists that are okay. First off, that are quality, that are good at their craft, but also are
CG.
supportive and yeah, of Comicsgate.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, we're looking for artists, and we look at Spain, we look at these various places, and the first thing we have to say is, "Have you heard of CG?" And they're like, "Oh, the CG on Twitter?" I'm like, yeah. Like, oh no, 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 no. And that's the end of that, man.
Oh yeah. I hate that I had like so I did a search both on Twitter and on DeviantArt and on Facebook, and I contacted a lot of artists, and the fact that I had to bring it up all of the time, and luckily there's still a lot of great talent out there that's they're either for Comicsgate or they're at least just against they want to be neutral. And in being neutral, the other side is basically labeling you Comicsgate anyway. So
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of times, some people say, well, we're CG adjacent. And I'm like, okay, but you do realize that the moment you say the word CG, the opposition is going to ignore the word adjacent and just say you're CG.
yeah, that's from my perspective. I own it. And honestly, I'm proud to own it. I have no shame.
Neither do I, mate.
No,
Yeah, absolutely.
no need. In fact, all the shame seems to be coming from the other side. So
It's
we'll let
pretty
them.
horrific, the lengths that they're going to. I mean, it's unheard of. So
Yeah.
they're kind of making fools of themselves. But, at least it's entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, especially for YouTube, every time one of them does something ridiculous, just reporting on it and making a video, it's fun for me, but it's also, I think, fun for my subscribers. So that's great too.
There you go. You see, so it's serving a purpose. I mean, I feel sorry for them, and I understand we have to fight them back, but everything in its good time, and we'll be successful, and they'll move on to trying to figure out how to feed themselves.
Right. Yeah, they're gonna have to brush up on their window painting skills, I guess. But
I think so. Yeah, that or garbage picking or bottle searching. What do you call that in America? Where you go around, you search for these little bottles, and you go to recyclables.
Yep. Yeah, you got to recycle. Yep.
Got to recycle. They're going to become experts in that.
Yep. It'll be the new craft to master.
Oh yeah, no, they're going to elevate that job to the highest levels and then perform them to the greatest of their mediocrity.
And they'll give each other awards for it as well.
They'll get little trash awards.
Yeah.
Little bottles, little broken pieces stuck together with silly putty and such. It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that on public TV.
Very cool. Well, hey, I really enjoyed talking to you. Honestly, I'd love to have you on again sometime. I think it was a lot of fun. So
I'd love it, Clint. It was great talking to you, meeting you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Any last pitches?
A short one. Please subscribe to Indiecron, subscribe to Pixel Traitor, and at Dr. Wright is in. Those are my cohorts in not crime, but in constructive actions for this culture war.
Yes, thank you. And also, if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe to Sweetcast. And you can follow me on Twitter at CastSweet, just to make it confusing.
I love that mirror, duplication you've got going on there.
Yeah, somebody already had at Sweetcast.
I know, I gathered that much.
Yeah. So it'll work, I guess. But
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.